It has been over 2 years since Midjourney launched, and artists all over the world started mentally counting down their last few days of relevance. When Midjourney first dropped, the AI art it produced looked crude, uncanny, and obviously machine made. Now, the same prompt can give you something polished, cinematic, and hard to dismiss. From the beginning, people were polarized about generative art, and AI art is not real art, became the first line of defense. Just shun these people away. The argument went because all they are doing is typing words into an input box and calling themselves artists. It did not matter that what was produced in seconds was sometimes better than what most artists produced in hours or days. It still was not art. Surely art had to be more than that. Art was supposed to be beyond the reach of pixel, text, and sound token predicting machines. Art requires practice. Art requires skill. Art requires patience. Replace those with prompt engineering, and surely you get something mediocre at best and a mockery of the form at worst. And yet, while these arguments tried to shut generative art companies down, millions of people started using the tools and were awed by what they could create. It did not produce the Mona Lisa, but it produced enough bizarre, funny, and sometimes stunning work to keep people paying attention. Artists, understandably, were not happy. For the most talented, this felt like an attack on the form. For everyone else, it felt like the gates had been kicked open. Beginners, dabblers, and people who had not touched a paintbrush in 20 years suddenly had no problem sharing results with the world. And as capabilities improved, old jokes stopped being funny. At first, these tools could not generate hands properly. Then newer models got much better, just like a junior human artist eventually does through practice. That felt oddly unfair, especially to a group of people society had already been treating unfairly. Large corporations trained on public data, but artists did not put their work online, expecting it to become training material for machines that could imitate them. Machines that now let anyone mimic a style and generate in seconds what might have taken hours or days. That is not fair. But if you are a serious artist, I think there is good news here. This essay is not about how everyone is going to become an artist, how the supply of art will explode, and how expertise will become worthless. It is about the opposite. Why has generative AI not delivered on its promises? Why is everyone not an artist now? And I do not just mean painters or sculptors, include musicians, because Suno and Udio can already make convincing songs. Include writers, because language models can already produce pages and pages of prose. So, where is the flood of successful AI artists? Why has that story not arrived? Think about yourself. You can use these tools and create almost anything you want with minimal skill and very little time. If you are like most people, you tried that. Maybe it was fun for a few hours, or a few weeks, or even a few months. And then the desire just faded. That is normal. What is not normal is having no prior interest in art, no experience with art, and still deciding to keep doing this regularly for years. The people who do keep going usually do not stop at prompting. They learn Photoshop, Procreate, drawing, composing, recording, or writing seriously. Some turn it into a hobby, some turn it into a profession. That is why I think most anti AI arguments have been aiming at the wrong target. Everyone will not become an artist, even if the tools make it easier to start. What is more likely is that these tools make younger people curious about art, music, writing, and programming. And once that curiosity turns into real desire, many of those people will eventually use the generative tools less, not more. Because being an artist is crazy. Making art is crazy from the outside. It seems fun, fulfilling, and exciting. And that is exactly why there is so much competition. But even if a huge percentage of humanity wants to be an artist, Only a tiny fraction will stick with it for life. And even if they do, there are no guarantees it will work out in their favor. If you choose to make art, you are also choosing not to do many other things. For some people, art becomes all consuming. That can mean lost friendships, a shrinking social life, strained relationships, and years of work with no obvious reward. Even as a part time passion, art replaces something. Sometimes it replaces low effort scrolling, and that is a win. But it can also replace date nights, stable career progress, reading, rest, and opportunities you will never get back. There is always a cost, and many people do not see the cost until it is too late. What we see instead is the top 4.1%: the concerts, the book signings, the museum walls, the money, the followers, the interviews. But only people who love the process get to survive the path that leads there. The fame is not the point. The wealth is not the point. The publicity is not the point. People who start with those expectations usually suffer. People who love the craft tend to thrive. Many happy artists even keep ordinary careers outside their art. They make because making matters to them. So if a life of art is so costly, why do we keep doing it? Why choose the burden of expression in a world that rarely pays artists what they are worth? Because humans have always needed art. A song can bring back a love that did not work out. A film can show you what you could become, or warn you about what you could become. A novel can deepen your intuition about the world until it feels as if you have lived through another life. A great essay can hand you a perspective that changes your own. At our worst moments, art can make us feel less alone. Sometimes that is more powerful than advice. Sometimes that is the thing that saves you. That is the power of art. So art will continue to be consumed even as its forms evolve, and it will continue to be created even if thousands of AI tools promise to generate it in seconds. Artists will still exist. Art will still thrive. In fact, I think it can thrive even more in a world that contains generative AI. Here is something people often miss if they have never made art seriously. When painters finished one canvas, they often wanted to begin another. Musicians can spend hours adjusting a sound until a small sequence of notes suddenly feels right. That state of absorption matters. The state where time stops mattering, where everything clicks, where the work seems to pull itself out of you. Flow is one of the core human experiences that makes life worth living. And yes, you can find it in meditation, in sex, in travel, in novelty. But being able to create it on demand through something you are good at and love is hard to beat. Add status, usefulness, and a stable income, and you understand why people chase meaningful work. Some people are lucky enough to find that in traditional jobs. The accountant who lights up at a spreadsheet, the programmer who can code all day with minimal interruption. They get rewarded for their competence. The world is much less kind to the unknown artist. Art is fun to start, which means competition is brutal. And because competition is brutal, the profession increasingly selects for people who find the work fulfilling in itself. So, what happens when a single prompt can produce art, music, or text that looks indistinguishable from the work of competent creators? Absolutely nothing, or at least nothing like what people feared. Even typing one prompt a day becomes a chore if you do not truly care about the thing you are making. Sure, you can generate music now, but do you love making music? If you do, why not learn FL Studio or Logic Pro so you can make better music with more control? Why not learn music theory so you understand why certain choices work and when to break the rules? It is the same with visual art. Why stop at Midjourney when you can learn Procreate, Photoshop, drawing, or painting and shape the result exactly the way you want? It is the same with programming. It is the same with writing. AI lets you start faster. It does not remove the need to understand the field you want to work in, and it certainly does not give you desire. It is easy to generate a few dozen pictures, songs, or poems. It is much harder to keep going for months or years. Improve your taste, deepen your skill, and stay in love with the craft. But if that is what you truly want, then the difficulty is not a deal breaker. Desire comes first, discipline follows. No amount of AI replaces either trait. AI cannot kill art, and it cannot kill the artist in you. Only you can do that.